room. That's why you're hearing me talk. a little technical. Okay, so anyways, I think we're rolling on YouTube, hopefully. If not, Instagram will just be the cool platform that gets to see me live. So here we go. Offshore fishing, getting into it. So when someone says offshore fishing, typically what they think of, if they're not already into offshore fishing, is probably like marlin. Going after big blue marlin, maybe big bluefin tuna, watch Wicked Tuna, like, yeah, offshore fishing, huge fish, 1,000-pound fish. But offshore fishing is a lot more than that. So for the sake of the series, basically, I kind of think of three types of fishing. That's freshwater, inshore fishing, which is kind of like brackish in the river, and then offshore, which is like the beach on out to the ocean. If you're on the East Coast, then that would be to the beach and everything, east of that. Gulf Coast or California coast, that might be west, Gulf Coast, maybe south. It kind of loops around. But anyways, that's what offshore fishing is and kind of how I'm defining it for these videos. So offshore fishing can include a lot of types of fish. So you could be just off the beach in offshore fishing. And depending on where you're at, along the coastline, what location, wherever, can depend on what fish you are catching. For example, you can be off of like Fort Lauderdale and you go like maybe not even a mile off the beach and you're catching billfish like sailfish and mahi, and you catch big wahoo. And to get to those same fish off North Florida, you may have to go 60, 70, 80 miles to get to those same fish. But there are other, offshore fish just off the beach, a mile or two. Or, I see a lot of bay boats going offshore in the summer, and you have a great opportunity to catch big fish like kingfish. You can catch 40, 50-pound kingfish just off the beach. I've seen sailfish just a few miles off the beach. Cobia migrate along the beach, fish like that. So it all depends where you're at. Like in the Bahamas earlier this year, I got to go to the Bahamas and we were catching marlin, and it was like a mile off the beach, maybe. I mean, the water just drops off fast. I'm catching sailfish, blue marlin, and white marlin, of course, mahi, and you get tuna and wahoo, stuff like that. So getting into offshore fishing, what you may fish for depends where you're at along the coast. And of course, depending on where you're at means and how far you have to go to get to those fish will depend on what kind of, define what kind of boat you need. So if you're off Fort Lauderdale, you can go in a bay boat. Same boat you go in the river. You get a nice day, of course, and you can go offshore and you can troll and you can bottom fish, and it's simple enough. Like, you don't need that big stereotypical sport fisher with the outriggers trolling big, massive 80 wides to catch offshore fish. So there are kind of two styles of fishing that I kind of think of when offshore fishing, and that's trolling and bottom fishing. So obviously that can kind of, there's some fluctuation to it, right? You can drift and fish for bottom fish and drift for, the trolling fish. Trolling fish are like the pelagics, kind of the fish that wander around, stuff like that. Hang on 1 second, sorry. My Instagram app paused. Okay, I think I'm back. So you can catch the trolling fish, or like the pelagics, like mahi, wahoo, kingfish, marlin, tuna, stuff like that. These are fish that can travel with the ocean, with the currents. You fish for them differently than bottom fish, right? Like snapper, grouper, sea bass, triggerfish. These are fish that are living close to the bottom generally, and they like a hard structure to live around. That could be an artificial structure, a sunken tug, a barge, a ship. It could be like the little fish concrete houses. It could be culverts. It could be natural bottom, natural ledges, natural rock piles, drop-offs, just the way the Earth's, seafloor creates structure. Because bottom fish are kind of quite different. I want to say the opposite of pelagics, right? Pelagics are fast fish. They're striking fish, right? They're usually like kind of slender and pointy. I know they're a little fat, but you'll notice they have that forked tail, which is more hydrodynamic. It allows them to chase fish and get them. Whereas think of a grouper or snapper. It's got like a big old fan tail. It's a powerful tail. It's not fast, but it can push a lot of water and fight well. And they like the structure. It gives them some security. And of course, structure attracts bait. So fishing for both of those species, they could be around the same area. Whereas if their structure is holding bait, you may have pelagics around the area, moving more in and out, maybe up higher. And you may have grouper, snapper closer to the bottom, working on that. But also fish like mahi could be in really deep water where they probably don't know what's on the bottom. They can be thousands of feet deep, probably don't care what's on the bottom. They're around structure that's on the top, like temperature breaks. Sargassum grass, the weed lines, could be structure floating, like after storms, could be trees, could be artificial stuff, pallets, boards. Bait just moves through the water, and sometimes birds will be up there, and these fish will find the bait, and that's how you find them. So you get your two main types of fishing for this discussion. So depending on getting into offshore fishing, you may like bottom fishing, you may like trolling, you may like both. Sometimes it makes sense to troll for a while and then bottom fish. Sometimes a year are better for bottom fish than trolling. Sometimes a year bottom fish are shut down, so you can't catch them, or certain bottom fish. So, might make sense to troll. In North Florida, a lot of it has to do with time of year from the seasonal aspect. In the winter when it gets cold, it's cold along the inshore waters, but the Gulf Stream, it's warm. So like the kingfish don't hang inshore in the winter. They like the warmer water. They go south. They go east. Same thing like wahoo, stuff like that. So all that timing affects, what you may want to go fish for on any given day. So those are kind of the two main things, main types of fishing. And you guys got any questions, comments, tips? Feel free to jump in. If I'm not clear on something, that's the thing I like about the live video. You can say something, shout out like, hey, what do you mean by this? Or can you talk more about this particular topic? So feel free to shout out if you got any questions or anything. So with tackle, depending on the bottom fishing or trolling, it's going to define a lot of what kind of tackle that you need. Bottom fish being more powerful fish, you tend to use rods that don't necessarily need a lot of line capacity because they're not going to run very far, but you want strong line.
Blake wants to know, are there any times you live bait mahi out of Jacksonville?
Okay, cool. Good question. Basically, the main mahi run is like springtime. It kind of fluctuates. March, April, May. So those would be great times a year to live bait mahi. Generally, I'm trolling dead bait or artificials for mahi. Just because it's kind of like the tactic that I guess I'm used to. Like in the summer, it's good to go along the beach and catch live bait and then go fishing. Generally, it's harder to find the pogies when the mahi runs start, and if you do, you got to catch them generally when the sun comes up. So I like to be out towards the mahi bottom because it's like 60, 70 miles. So I'm usually leaving well before sunrise. So I'm going to catch pogies. You might could jig up bait. If I was going to do live bait for mahi, I would probably try to jig up a bunch of bait and then I would look for birds. Like I'd troll, probably do like a fast troll in our area, looking for that, some kind of like rip, temperature break. The year we did best, we found like a good rip where you could see it was kind of smooth on one side and like choppy on the other right there. And we worked that all day and caught good fish. So once I found that, then that's probably when I would like break out the live bait and troll those around. The downside to live bait, is you got to go slower so you don't drown the bait. And once you find the fish, that's okay. But if you haven't found them, you could troll for a while and not get them. Now, sometimes if I'm bottom fishing, put a flat line out and you can get mahi, like if you're bottom fishing out there at the ledge or out bottom, or even in the summer sometimes, they'll come in closer and I'll be live baiting for kingfish and you can get mahi that way. But that's kind of my thoughts on live baiting for mahi up here. Cool. Any other questions so far? Cool. Okay, so bottom fish and trolling fish. So the tactics, obviously, for bottom is you want to find good bottom, and you want to fish close to that. There's different types of bottoms. You'll hear phrases like live bottom, maybe like a hard bottom. So there's some areas that are very fishy. They have like structure. Even if it's not big structure, even if it kind of looks flat, there may be like little holes that your depth recorder doesn't pick up. Different like kinds of fan coral, and just something about some of these live bottoms, even though they don't show much, they attract bait and they attract fish. In the Keys, we'll go to these live bottoms along the reef. If you have Seymour and look at it, you'll see it's kind of like a little ripply kind of look. I have some videos where we dove it, and you can kind of see what it looks like. You can see what it looks like on your depth recorder, and we got one where it shows what it looks on Seymour too. In those areas, you could anchor on it, put a chum bag out, and catch fish. You could also drift it. If you got like one of the spot lock trolling motors, you can, even on the big offshore boats, you can kind of like power drift it, kind of just work the area. Other areas might be like a ledge, very defined ledge, and you need to be close to that. If you can drift down the ledge, then that's great. A lot of times you can't, so you just find a point on that and get your boat right around it. Maybe on the high side, and then you could drift back and fish the deep side. But for bottom fishing, it's very important to be on the structure. If you're a good ways away from it, you're probably not going to draw many of those fish from their protective habitat. Trolling, on the other hand, I'll troll around a ledge, and I can get several hundred yards, maybe even a quarter mile, something like that, off of it, especially if I'm wahoo fishing. I'll troll all around live bottoms, kind of go out, find areas, kind of look for bait, because sometimes the bait will move a little ways off of it. So trolling, those fish just kind of hang further out versus the bottom fish. You want to get close. So if you're not seeing it marked good, then you might not be on it good, and you're probably not going to catch a lot. Electronics-wise, for bottom fishing versus trolling, you're going to use your depth recorder a lot for bottom fishing, and it's still important with trolling. But bottom fishing, you definitely want to see the structure and see fish on it. Just because the structure's there doesn't mean there's necessarily going to be fish there. I mean, normally there's something there, but I've seen it where it's just kind of dead in the water. There's not much bait. You don't mark anything above it. You see a good solid structure, but nothing's there. If you don't see anything there, fish for a few minutes, not really getting anything, then go ahead and move on, because if you don't mark any there, then they're probably not there. And kind of the same with trolling. As I'm trolling around, I am paying attention to my depth recorder, because I want to see if there's anything in the water column. I'm hoping to mark bait somewhere along the way. Temperature is important with trolling, and I still try to pay attention to it for bottom fishing. But bottom fish, like, they seem better in the winter sometimes. Like, I'm not really concerned about the water being too cold. It doesn't seem like cold water really pushes a grouper out. Now, a thermocline might. So for those who don't know, A thermocline is when the bottom, or basically a section of the water, is colder than the other section. So like the top could be pretty blue, it could be in the middle of summer, it could be 80 degrees, and then on the bottom, you could be 70 degrees, 65 degrees, like cold, and it'd be like murky. And I think it has something to do with like a west wind. It seems like up in Northeast Florida, when you get a solid west wind in the middle of summer, it's almost like I don't know if it's like stopping the flow or it's just kind of pushing the warm water out and cold water in. I don't know exactly why it causes it. But as a diver, like I've dove it before, and you jump in the water and it's like, it feels good, it's clear, and you start going down, and all of a sudden it looks like the bottom, but there's not. It's just like dark. And you just kind of transition very strong. It's not like a garage, it's pretty solid, like, clear, warm, cold. And it's like hard to see. You may only have 5 feet of viz, 10 feet of viz. It's really cold. You had 30, 40, 50 feet when you were up higher. So I think that affects the bottom fish, that thermocline, that solid change, the murkiness. That does hurt you, I think. But like just regular middle of the winter, it's colder than it is in the summer. I don't really think that bothers the bottom fish that much. So, trolling fish, I mean, it can kind of affect it, but I think they'll hang up in the warm water, so it may not necessarily be as bad. How's it going, Drew? Thanks for joining. Appreciate the shout out. Okay, so a little bit of basics on the electronics, how we would use those for bottom fishing versus trolling. And I can definitely get more into electronics on a later time. For where to fish, bottom fish wise versus trolling wise, they kind of coincide. You're gonna want to fish good areas, even if you're trolling and not directly on the bottom or not on a solid spot like a live bottom. You still want to know where those areas are. So if you're getting into fishing and you want to know, like, hey, where do I go? Like, I don't know where to go. Well, there's a couple good resources to find fishing spots. So one is generally like the Florida Fish and Wildlife. Every state has it. The game warden. Wherever you would go to get your fishing license, for example, they generally have a list of all the artificial wrecks. They create them. The government sponsors a lot of projects to put these sunken ships and culverts and all these artificial wrecks. So you can go to that website and they list where they put all the wrecks. That way you can use them for fishing. So you can go to these websites and get those numbers. Now there's one thing to keep in mind, because some of the numbers, especially the older spots, 10, 15 years ago, they didn't have as accurate a number. You'll see like on GPS numbers, depending on the style, there'll be a couple main numbers and a couple more, and then there'll be like 3 of the last digits. And if that last digit is 0, most of the time it's because they weren't precise enough, or they didn't have it at the time, the older software to have that 3rd digit. And that it's kind of a big area. If you go right to that spot, you may not mark it. So if you see that it kind of only has 2 numbers and the last one, it doesn't have that 3rd digit, then it could be a little off. So you may have to do a little searching. So that's one resource. A lot of the chart plotters, when you get your GPS unit, MFDs as they call them now, multi-function displays, because your depth recorder, your radar, all hooks into this thing, but they have a built-in GPS too. A lot of those have the public numbers already built in. Again, they may not always be the most precise, but they'll get you close. If you kind of ride around a little bit, you'll see them. There's also some cool software, some topography maps, like Seymour maps. If you're getting into fishing, that's really great because you can see in very great detail how ledges run. You can see the sunken ships. They have a lot of areas mapped out, and that'll really get you on spots quick. I've been fishing for a long time, and I started using those maps, and I found a ton of spots I didn't know about. And I learned more about spots I do fish because I could see exactly how they run. Before I'd mark points, and after a while marking points, you kind of follow like, okay, that's how the ledge runs like that. But now I can just see it right up on the map, so it's kind of neat. How's it going? Ocean's Deep Fishing. Thanks for joining. No problem. So that's one way to find numbers. Most people are generally pretty good about sharing public numbers. I'm happy to share numbers. People may not give you their super secret spot, but generally, like for example, in the beach fishing, there's areas like the Southeast Hole, there's the Chum Hole, Red Tops. They've kind of been given names based off of the structure you see along the beach. Red Tops, there's a bunch of buildings that have red roofs. That's how you know about them. And there's like a natural bottom out there. It's not like one point where all the fish stay, but it's an area that it's usually people will share with you pretty freely. Okay, question. How fast of a temp change, and what's your favorite temp for fall and winter wahoo? Hey Blake, so that's a good question. Can I say it again? Sorry. How fast the temperature change, I guess kind of depends on the season. I've seen some years where it's really cold and it's hard to find warm water. I generally like 70 degrees and up for wahoo. 72, 73 is pretty nice. That's kind of light fell, sorry guys. That's kind of what I like. And when the water gets to that temperature, it all depends. Like this past year, I felt like it was kind of weird because it was pretty warm. It was like a solid warm. Like normally when you leave the inlet, for example, out of like Mayport or San Augustine, Fernandina, it'll be like in the winter, it'll be cold. It could be like 55 degrees, in the middle of winter. And you're going and it's slowly warming up, and then once you get close, it may jump to like 68, 69, and you get into 70, and it goes really fast, and that's really good. This year, it seemed like it was like mid-60s, like the whole way out, and it's like, oh, we're going to find hot water soon. It was like, no, not really. It's still high 60s, so it was kind of weird. But I like, the 70, 72 or so degrees for wahoo. Haven't gone for them yet. Hopefully soon. Seems like November, Thanksgiving always seems like, if I can, a good time to go after them. Okay, let's see another question from Todd. What's the safest wave height that you will run offshore? Seems like there's less opportunities this year because the water is too rough. Yeah, I agree. It does seem like lately it's been really rough. We've had these storms. It's going to be blowing for the next week. And usually it doesn't seem to get that bad till, more like December, January, February. So the wave height I like in the winter when I have to run a long wave for wahoo, 2 feet or less, or 2 to 3. If it's 3 to 5, it's in a 27 contender for 60, 70 miles. It's not really worth it. If it was in the middle of summer and we were going on the beach, we only had to go a few miles, yeah, sure, I don't mind going in a little bit rougher water. I can take it slow. You can't really take it slow when you're trying to go 60, 70 miles because you'll never get there. If you just want to cruise along at 10 to 15, then it'll take you forever to get there. So 2 feet or less, 2 to 3. A lot of times it'll be like rougher in the morning, or the weatherman just gets it wrong. Thankfully, most times it usually calms down when you get in a little ways, so that's okay. But yeah, for my dad's 27 contender, I try not to go at it any more than 2 to 3. So hopefully that helps. Let's see another question. So Ocean's Deep said he hears the big redfish are around now. So the fish are let's see. So basically, I think how do you find a spot for the redfish? So this is the time of year the bull redfish run. Bull redfish, are those overslot redfish in Florida, on the East Coast anyways. You can keep the fish have to be between 18 and 27 inches, I believe. Anything over that, you have to throw back. Anything under that, you have to throw back. Some fish, they just have to be a certain size, and then they can be as big as you want. Redfish have a slot. A couple types of fish have that slot. If it's too big, you gotta let them go. If it's too small, you gotta let them go. If it's in the middle, you can keep it. The fall is a great time for redfish, the bull redfish. We went out earlier this year, a few weeks ago, and we had a really great evening bite. So we went the next week, and it was like totally dead for whatever reason. Talked to a couple other guys, it was dead too. We went out Saturday, not for redfish, but for flounder, right after Hurricane Milton. Thankfully, it didn't hit us in North Florida too hard, but it did dump a lot of rain, and that rain in St. John's, flows north, so all the rain in Central Florida is kind of washing our way up. So it was kind of dead out there Saturday. So generally redfish, inshore fishing, but I kind of treat the tactics like bottom fishing. I use a bottom fish setup. I have my bottom fish rod, so I have like 65 and 80 pound braid. I have 60 to 80 pound mono leader to a circle hook. That's like an 8/0, 9/0, 10/0, a pretty good size circle hook. And there's a lot of current in the main river, so I'm using 16 to 24 ounces of weight just to keep it down. And then those fish hit the circle hook, which has like a crab or a mullet, a bait like that, and pretty much hit it, and they'll hook themselves, and you fight them up. So pretty fun way to do it. You just got to go, really, it's pretty simple, like in the middle of the channel. Like they like that channel drop off from the Dames Point Bridge. You can go all the way out to the jetties. If it's not rough at the jetties, you can put baits out there. Just soak them on the bottom. Be patient, wait, and those fish come through, and they'll hit it and get a lot of good bites. I do like a moving current. The slack tide, they do not seem to bite. So if there's no current, just be patient. I haven't found anything you can do. You just got to kind of sit there and wait for the tides to change, and once it starts running, they'll hopefully start biting again. So someone said those ladyfish schooling in the river yet. So I haven't seen them yet. We went out Saturday, and I was kind of watching for the birds, because last year about this time we would see like the birds attacking schools, and there'd be ladyfish under the schools of bait, and those are fun to catch. They call them poor man's tarpon. You catch them and they jump, and they're kind of long and silvery. How's it going, Owen? Thanks for joining. But yeah, so those ladyfish, typically this time of year, they're not really a good eating fish. I've never tried it. So I don't know, maybe they are, but from what I hear, they're not very good eating fish, but they are fun to catch. And they can make great bait too, like redfish, like ladyfish, other fish, like ladyfish. So fun to catch if you got kids and just want to like bend a rod, get some good practice, because they jump a lot. They really try to spit that hook. They're a fun one to catch. So I haven't seen them yet, but I mean, they should be soon, like any day. Maybe they're out there right now. I don't know. Could be out there while I'm filming. He said, do they like deeper water? So, yeah, I think they like that channel water. So I'd say seems like I generally target them anywhere from 30 to 50 feet deep. It doesn't have to be in the middle of the channel or even completely deep, but yeah, kind of that range as it drops off, they seem to like. Yeah, Ocean's Deep Fishing said they're terrible to eat. They have 1 million bones. So, if anyone wants to try it and let me know. I tend to believe Ocean's Deep Fishing. And just from my experience, yeah, I don't think they'd be very good. But I see videos now on YouTube where people find good eating fish people find traditionally bad eating fish, or what was known to be bad eating fish, and they try to eat it. Like bonita. I hear bonita are very bony, very bloody, but I see people trying to eat it. I guess if you have the right recipe. So it all just depends. They used to joke about a certain type of fish that was considered bad eating. It's like, here's how you cook it. Take it, you put it on the board, you season the board, you let it soak, you put it in a slow cooker, cook it for 24 hours, then you throw the fish away and you eat the board. They eat a bad eating fish. Okay, so that's pretty much what I got for you on this intro to what offshore fishing is, with a little side tangent on bull redfish and ladyfish. But probably the next episode, unless you guys would like to see something else, will be like the type of tackle you need for the different types of fishing. Offshore fishing, I feel like, is a little harder than inshore and freshwater in terms of tackle, because there's such a wide range of fish. You know, going for 1,000-pound bluefin is totally different tactics or tackle and tactics than going for, you know, vermilion snapper, which only get this big, or you know, even kingfish, which you can use light line, you know, 20-pound line and catch 50-pound fish. So large variety of tackle that we can go over, what to use in the different situations, what are good brands, bad brands, basic brands, fancy brands, models, stuff like that. So appreciate it. Glad, happy to share the technique, land cart. Ocean Deep said, first Owen said, how long until Wahoo starts? Well, Owen, I was going to ask your dad that same question. Ultimately, I mean, typically like November, I feel like I've got to go like Black Friday before. I think November, they generally start. I think you can probably catch them now. I generally don't start till January, because it seems like I get hunting in November and then still hunting a little bit in December, and then you have the holidays, so then just bad weather, and I still have my regular 9-to-5 job, which is great. But I can't always just stop and hit that perfect window. So seems like generally I don't get started until January. But hey, I believe they're out there. You could probably get them now, and I think definitely November, December, I hear of a lot of great days happening then. So pretty much any day now. Appreciate you guys liking our shorts. Hope you guys enjoy that. We got some other funny ones coming out soon. I think it'll be pretty funny, and I think there'll be some good ones. So thanks everyone for joining. Shout out Clay Crabtree 54. Yes, you can get a shout out. Thank you for asking to get a shout out. But yeah, so I think we're gonna post a video tomorrow. We got a bunch in the queue, so we're gonna try to post some more. Obviously, we're gonna have our video Friday. We're gonna have some shorts coming out. If you guys hit the bell for notifications, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing it, on Facebook or whatever, if you would share our stuff, we definitely really appreciate that. Helps people to learn about us. I don't think the algorithm always treats us so well, but hey, if you could share it, if you know anyone likes fishing, by me, say, hey man, check this funny video out. Or you can be like, check out this ridiculous video. Can you believe these guys follow us? But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. This awkward silence moment while shutting off the cameras.